Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Joined by our great friend, best-selling author, former federal prosecutor, former U.S. attorney, lover of the four-legged furry family friends, Chuck Ambrose. Chuck, good to have you back with us.
Great introduction. Thank you.
Well, and I was going to say the pride of the Air Force Academy, Ole Miss, and everything else that's good.
I'm not sure you'd get many votes on that. Thanks anyway.
Well, you're quite welcome. So, you know, with how things are going, I've just got to hit you with, what do you think of Dr. Corsi's revelations and Roger Stone? And I guess we'll start with that, sir.
Well, let me first say that I hate to have to live with the same label, and that is prosecutor, that people are attributing to Mueller and company. They have abused their position to hell and back. And unfortunately, it plays right into the narrative that some people want to go with these days, and that's even bleeding into programs like Hannity on occasion and Limbaugh on occasion. You have these people with money to make and axes to grind, like Sidney Powell, who want to paint every federal prosecutor with that same brush, and nothing could be further from the truth. Mr. Mueller and his band of zealots are the exception, not the rule. And I'm impressed and hope that Mr. Corsi and Stone and company can stick to their guns, because only by doing so will the dirt come out on these clowns.
Well, and Chuck, for people that, they haven't Googled you, could you give us just a brief summation of your background? Because a lot of people, they've been they've been attorneys or they've been prosecutors, but not at your level, number one, sir. And, there are people that appear on Fox News quite a lot, Victoria Townsend, Joe DeGenova. You go back a ways with them as well.
I first was a prosecutor in the Air Force. They made me one of their circuit riders, which meant that I had literally a quarter of the country to cover for general courts martial. And for anyone who's not familiar with military law, the court martials these days are modern litigation facilities. We use the federal rules of evidence. We use the federal rules of criminal procedure generally. There were, some exceptions like purely military offenses, such as, AWOL, desertion, that sort of thing. But otherwise, you might as well have been in federal court. And after 5 years on the road doing that, Joe DeGenova actually hired me as an assistant U.S. attorney in the District of Columbia, and I worked for him for a few years before moving out west to Kansas City and spending another quarter century in federal courts out there. So, probably in excess of 300 criminal trials, a lot of conspiracy work, mafia, drug gangs, you name it.
And obviously you go back a long ways with the DeGenovas.
Well, I don't want to overstate the connection. Joe had probably 500 assistants in that office in D.C. It's one of the mega offices in the country. But he kept track of me and moved me through the system fairly rapidly to where I was in the federal court office in less than a year, which is somewhat atypical. Normally, folks in that office have to spend a lot longer than that in the local court system before being promoted to the federal floor. But with all the trial experience I had, it did not take me that long.
Let's get back to Mueller and Comey, because, Chuck, you were the first one here in Idaho to reveal that Mueller and Comey were boys.
Well, Mueller, Comey, and Rosenstein. Rod Rosenstein's first boss in the Department of Justice was Bob Mueller. And then Mueller goes over to the Bureau to become the director. Comey was a deputy attorney general in the department. And, he worked hand in hand with Mueller on lots of issues. They became extremely close. The modern lexicon of BFF would apply to them. And for Mr. Rosenstein to ignore all of the conflicts and appoint Mueller in the first place just reveals some of his own conflicts, like having been the supervising attorney for the Uranium One investigation into the Clintons that never went. So, yeah, that's a real thick den of thieves.
Chuck Ambrose joining us, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Chuck, let's examine this. What do you make of the revelations concerning Paul Manafort and Dr. Corsi?
Well, if you listen to the likes of Sidney Powell, every federal prosecutor out there is trying to squeeze people into committing perjury. Again, that is not the case, but it appears to be the case when you go to Mr. Mueller and company, because unlike most federal investigations and cases which start with a criminal offense and then move to try and identify the perpetrator, here their target is the perpetrator, and the investigation is to try and either identify or manufacture an offense to prosecute. It's an absolutely upside-down perversion of the way the criminal justice system is supposed to work. And so if they are trying to squeeze the families of Corsi, Manafort, Michael Flynn, in order to get the defendants that they've indicted to manufacture evidence, then we get this kind of shenanigan going on. And then apparently Corsi and Manafort have just had enough and said, we've done what we've done, but we're not going to lie for you. So stuff it. And I think Mr. Corsi has also indicated an intention to sue Mueller and company for abuse of process and their position. So we'll see how that goes.
Chuck, what do you make of just this whole Mueller investigation? Now you have people cheering him on. Some reports, Alan Dershowitz saying it's going to be devastating for the president. But, the idea that this investigation continues and he hasn't really provided anything, as someone who has prosecuted at this level, you know the characters. Your thoughts?
Well, the thoughts with respect to Mueller and Weinstein and some of his other henchmen, believe me, if there was anything there that could have been leaked that would have been devastating to the president in terms of a fact or actual offense, we would have known about it long before now. Now, since Mueller is going to be writing and issuing a report, that probably goes to my other career field, which is writing fiction, because, he can put out anything he wants to in terms of political critique. But odds are that it will not be fact-heavy. It will be just a very colored system of accusations of this could have happened, this could have happened, this could have happened. And, you compare that with the actual evidence that's out there against the other side, that being Mrs. Clinton, and the fact that no action is taking place there. And this is a sad time in American justice.
Where do you think this goes from here? And, obviously the elephant in the room, the firing of Jeff Sessions.
Well, Mr. Sessions didn't do his job, and he didn't have to recuse himself, and when he did, that opened the door to this whole cabal controlling the process, appointing Mueller to start with, and then Rosenstein's charter letter to Mueller to concentrate only on Trump and not go after the Clintons. And so here we are today. So I have no problem with the termination of Mr. Sessions, who did some nice things, but in terms of the biggest item on his plate, did nothing. We now have, the interim AG, who was absolutely properly appointed, but who will probably be dragged in front of Adam Schiff's new committee. And so, we're just in for 2 years of nasty deadlock.
So where do we go from here?
I don't think we go anywhere other than, again, a fictional report from Mueller, which will be soap opera innuendo. It will give the so-called mainstream media ammo to throw at the president. I hope that he keeps his Teflon qualities about him, although I think that There are some other things churning up in the water, such as this proposed Sentencing Reform Act in the Senate right now, which is a very bad idea, and unfortunately the president has signed on to that. We have a system that has worked since 1984 when we passed the Sentencing Reform Act then, and oddly enough, a Democrat-controlled House. And that cured a major problem we had had for decades, which was rogue judges issuing such disparities in sentences for the same offense that you literally could have probation given to one guy and a life sentence for another. And when that act brought into play the sentencing guidelines and mandatory minimums to cure that disparity, the crime rate dropped tremendously. And yet now we have a very odd alliance of some conservatives who think we're going to save money in the prison system by letting people out earlier, and then the Democrats who want to pander to certain minority communities. And if we do see this law pass, I think it's going to be a very bad thing, especially for those neighborhoods where these predators came from. And yes, I use the word predators. It's probably the only time I'm going to agree with Hillary and Bill Clinton on anything, and it makes me want to wash my mouth out, but that's what they are.
Chuck Ambrose, how's the literary career going?
Working hard on book 6. The first 5, if anyone wants to Google crime drama in Amazon, you'll see books 1 through 5 happen to be mine. I write under the pen name of Mark Rayner, a tribute to some family members I lost to cancer. But I couldn't be happier with it. And we have lots of other irons in the fire, including some potential pickups of a TV script on the left coast. Maybe somebody will be politically flexible enough to want to tell the truth. We'll see what happens.
Well, you could be a Hollywood producer. We can say we knew you when.
That would require me flying to Hollywood, and I'm not sure that's going to happen at all.
Well, Chuck, final thought. Where do you expect this to go from here, and what do you make of Justice Roberts not laying the smackdown, but firing back at President Trump?
Well, I mentioned the disparity that we used to have in judges. And yes, there are Johnson judges and Carter judges and Clinton judges and Obama judges. And for a chief justice, and, we understand what he's trying to do, protect his fiefdom. But for him to make such a naive statement as that, no, there are not those judges, that really flies in the face of fact, logic, and history, and even the reason why the Sentencing Reform Act in 1984 was passed. Having had to appear before Clinton and Carter judges and see what they would do to put these criminals back on the street quite often. You cannot ignore those facts. And for him to try and whitewash that to excuse the overreach of an Obama judge in one federal district trying to legislate for the entire nation against the president's immigration actions it's just inexcusable.
Chuck, we always appreciate you. Keep your powder dry.
Try to, man. You too.
All right, our great friend Chuck Ambrose. All right, coming up next, they've waited long enough. Tea Party Bob from the Gem State Patriot, gemstatepatriot.com, and Liberal Steve from Libville, and you with me. We're talking General Motors, we're talking Comey, Dr. Corsi, and just what's going on here locally. We'll tell you next. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And quick break, back to more talk. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. As Dave Ramsey says, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Coming up, a lot of people are making a big deal about this locally, where you have the comments of a great champion of freedom, of Idaho, of the West, Ammon Bundy, making a video concerning President Trump. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up. It's funny, the media will give Ammon the attention when he disagrees with the president, which is his right, but with everything else, they ignore him. Gotta love the fair media. Tea Party Bob, gemstatepatriot.com, moving to a different time slot. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
I am living the dream. Thank you for your patience. You're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Well, I just wanted to touch base on this General Motors cutting these jobs because, they know they can't afford to keep 14,000 workers at the salaries and benefits that they currently make, even though they're offering some relocation for those laid off workers. Most of them are not going to be able to avail themselves of those opportunities. Picking up and moving a family from one state to another is not an easy job. General Motors has spent billions investing in plants and research in China and Mexico because it's the only way that they're going to be able to get out of these onerous contracts is if they start building these cars out of country. When it comes right down to it, the unions are just as responsible as General Motors for having these jobs cut. And truth be known, GM will not be able to pay out the accrued pensions that are due the employees. And they know they're going to have to turn over their pension money to the government and allow them to dole it out at much lower retirement benefits than they would have gotten had they been solvent. They should never have bailed out General Motors during the recession with the $50 billion of taxpayer money that the Obama administration decided to pick winners and losers in the auto industry. So they were permitted to survive primarily because they were working on this electric car, the Volt. GM was banking on the Volt to sell like hotcakes, but it never really happened. And the government's been paying $7,500 in subsidies for each car they sell, and they're still losing money. Their second-generation car is coming out, and they're going to lose $9,000 per vehicle, and it's still only going to get 53 miles on the battery power. So basically, the taxpayer is paying for a losing proposition for GM to develop an electric car, which still doesn't have the capabilities of a car like the Tesla, which is now making money with their production 3 model. So, this all comes back down to free enterprise. Why are we getting involved in it? We need to stop supporting private corporations like General Motors. And even Tesla should stop getting any kind of subsidies for their autos. If a product isn't viable on its own, it shouldn't be subsidized with taxpayer money. And the president's right in looking at cutting these subsidies, especially with this closing of the 3 plants, or 5 plants, as they say now. The government has no business picking winners and losers. It's amazing. We can't get the money to build a wall to stop illegal immigration, but we can pour billions into the development of electric cars that still don't perform. And this has been since 2009 and 10. So you got to look at this in perspective. We're making a lot of bad decisions in government to support companies that really aren't supporting us in any way.
They pick the winners and losers, and Obama did that. But I like what the president said. Let's take a listen to what he had to say here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
Well, we don't like it. I believe they'll be opening up something else. And I was very tough. I spoke with her when I heard they were closing. And I said, this country's done a lot for General Motors. You better get back in there soon. That's Ohio. And you better get back in there soon. So we have a lot of pressure on them. You have senators. You have a lot of other people. A lot of pressure. They say the Chevy Cruze is not selling well. I say, well, then get a car that is selling well and put it back in. So I think you're going to see something else happen there, but I'm not happy about it. Their car is not selling well, so they'll put something else. I have no doubt that in a not too distant future, they'll put something else. They better put something else in.
There we have it, the president.
Well, I think it's kind of unlikely they're going to do anything like that, but we'll have to see what happens. They could retool these plants if they wanted to. Mercedes does it. All of the foreign companies are able to do it. I don't see why General Motors can't do it. They just don't want to pay these benefits. When you got workers making $50 and $60 an hour, it's not sustainable for a long period of time, and they know that. So this is the reason they're doing what they're doing. It's very simple.
Tea Party Bob, thank you.
Have a great day, Kevin.
You too, our great friend Tea Party Bob. Traffic and weather together. Let's get you to work.
What's Eric Everett?
And Liberal Steve joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Liberal Steve.
Good
Good morning. Good to hear Bob talking out his derriere. Doesn't know. Yeah, GM paid back the loan, by the way, but they used TARP money, which is taxpayer money anyway. And who cares about these car companies? Looking at fat America, more people need to get on a bike, period. And what's with you and Mark Rayner's love affair? Huh? What's with that?
What are you talking about?
You don't know who Mark Rayner is?
I know who Mark Rayner is. Chuck Ambrose, yes.
Okay, he can't even use his real name because he's sitting down there getting our tax dollars to pay for him as Assistant Attorney General.
U.S. Attorney General.
Department of Justice, excuse me, making money off us while he's writing a series of little drama books.
What are your credentials compared to his?
Yeah, credentials. Oh, come on, 25. He was always an assistant.
You're not going to answer the question?
And then how about Pyle? Talking to Pyle.
Wait a minute. Hold on. For everyone that says that I never give Liberal Steve an opportunity, I don't know. Maybe you need to take a sedative here on KIDO Talk Radio. But Liberal Steve, come on. We've got a great resource in Chuck Ambrose. You don't defend it. Now you're moving on to Tim Pyle, Tom Pyle, Gomer Pyle, whoever we had on in the 6 o'clock hour.
Yeah, talking about the coal. I mean, come on. What do you want? Trains going down the tracks doing coal up into the air?
We have trains that go down the tracks here.
Yeah, come on. Coal is history. Ask Elon Musk. Ask Tesla.
He's going to Mars. What does he know?
Yeah, okay.
Did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed this morning, little buddy?
No, I'm just saying, you got all these people on, nobody can read. And pro-life, what kind of man would change his last name that was given to him by his ancestors and his fathers? Why didn't he just change it to no murder or no abortion rather than pro-life? You know, and 37 countries still have, in El Salvador, women can go to prison for having a miscarriage.
Don't know about that.
Did you know that? Well, in all the third world countries where women are beat down and stuff, they can be stoned and beaten for miscarriages.
Now, what does that have to do with Chuck Ambrose or Tim Pyle or Tom Pyle
or
Gomer Pyle?
We're not talking about. We've moved on from those yahoos.
I see.
I mean, that's like Tea Party Bob, like he knows what's going on with GM. A company stays in business to stay in business, period. And if they move out of, and it's such a joke.
And here's what Terry says. I love when Liberal Steve calls in and says absolutely nothing.
How come when I call in, your little Terry buddy always sends in an email and you always read it like it means something?
I find it entertaining.
You don't read anybody else's email when they send in something that they are talking about people, do you?
He's about the only one. He's about the only one.
Are you biased, Miller?
I'm biased for the right. Yes, I am.
And President Trump going every day picking losers after loser after
because
loser.
President Trump and Kevin Miller and our great family here, we're trying to save America. I don't know about you. You're welcome to join us.
Our great family here
we are asking you to save America. By the way, we're still waiting. We're still we're still waiting for that Paulette Jordan dinner that you owe us.
Oh, who?
Hey, by the way. Whatever happened to Paulette Jordan?
You keep this up, I'm going to come into that studio and start talking real business with you about the real world, but you won't put me on the air, would you?
You come in any time. I'll give you the business.
I'll have a cup of coffee and a donut and let Idaho knows what and who and how. It just irks me so when you get to these old fuddy-duddies on here that are dust.
And how old are you?
None of your business.
I gotta go, my friend. But thank you for the call.
Well, you stay fired up and put people on that knows what they're talking about. Get Paulette Jordan on. But wait a minute, she won't talk to you because she knows what she's talking about.
Whew. We're fired up today. So happy you're with us. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller in the morning. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And we go to our great friend Jeff Monasso joining us from Fox News Radio in Chicago. Good morning.
Hi, my friend.
So, Jeff, we take a look at the Keystone Pipeline, another delay, another court order. We were just talking about that in the 6 o'clock hour. Will this pipeline ever be finished?
Well, President Trump thinks it's going to. He's going to continue to push efforts for this to happen. The Keystone, much like the Dakota Access, was shuttered by the Obama administration, and once President Trump took office, he pushed forward with the State Department signing off on the Keystone XL pipeline, and just there are going to be lawsuits throughout this process, and so more continue. Native American reservations, they continue to sue over these projects, which brings us to the current case at U.S. District Court in Montana, where Judge Brian Morris, a President Obama appointee, blocked TransCanada's permit earlier this month to build the Keystone XL from Alberta's oil sands through a half dozen U.S. states to the Gulf of Mexico, about 1,200-mile stretch, until further environmental studies can be done. But lawyers for TransCanada yesterday asked that same judge to clarify or amend his order to block the project so that pre-construction work can continue while it considers the appeal. And so the judge yesterday did allow TransCanada to conduct engineering, to do planning activities, confirm shipping contracts, meet with different groups, and acquire equipment, permits, and land rights so it can move forward should this case go their way. Remember, Canada is the number one source of oil imported to the U.S., and shipping via truck and train has proved costly. And in some cases, not environmentally sound as well. So, President Trump, he's been touting the construction of these pipelines as far back as the 2016 campaign, and said that his administration will continue to move forward with the project.
And again, it continues to get tied up in court. You just wonder if it'll ever happen, and balancing the energy concerns versus the environmental issues as well, Jeff.
We'll see. The Dakota Access, there are still lawsuits also playing out there, but the Dakota is operational, so we'll see. Should President Trump not win in 2020, there's the chance that things could go south for Keystone. If he does win, maybe things will look up for TransCanada, but it's confident that the suit will go its way. It's based on environmental issues and the impact on, potential impact, I should say, on groundwater and soil. But the argument can be made that if you look at a map of the U.S. and the infrastructure, just the highway and road infrastructure, it's the same thing under the ground. Generally, as it pertains to pipes and wires that are underneath us, and generally, it's all been pretty safe. So we'll see how it plays out.
And much more fallout of the president and General Motors.
Well, he is not happy with General Motors' decision. You remember, that Lordstown plant that makes the Chevy Cruze is, those folks, those are Trump's people. Those are the people that voted for him, the blue collar folks, the people who build America. Those are the folks that went Trump's way and broke down that blue wall in 2016. And so I think he better be in their corner. And so he has been very critical of GM. We'll see if that has anything to do with progress that might be made. Hopefully, if you're one of those workers, one of the some 15,000 workers that are going to be laid off in North America, be able to get some jobs back by the new technology, by the autonomous technology, the electrics, the hybrids that GM wants to invest in. Hopefully, they invest in them in these plants, and so that folks can continue to work.
Now, in your travels in your beloved Midwest, have you ever passed by that plant? I spent a lot of time in Ohio, and it's an impressive place right off the highway there. It's an impressive facility, Lordstown, Ohio. And
yeah, it's a massive facility. President Trump touting BMW this morning via a tweet that they're just opening up a massive multi-million-dollar plant, and that it can be done. And we can build cars. We can make them in the USA. One of Trump's arguments is that GM, while it's shuttering 5 plants and putting investments in other places, it's got plants and big investments in China. It's got plants and big investments in Mexico, and that this country was good to GM by bailing that company out, and so this is the thanks that we get. GM obviously it's beholden to its stockholders, and there's a bottom line, and it feels that it needs to do what it needs to do, but there's not a lot of love right now between President Trump and CEO Mary Barra at GM.
Jeff Monasso, thank you, sir.
You bet.
All right. The fallout continues here on 107.5 FM, 5:80 a.m. Patriot Ray weighing in. If you missed it, Liberal Steve was on a tirade just moments ago. As far as Liberal Steve is concerned, it appears that too much pot in his pipe is the problem. When Liberal Steve speaks, it's kind of like Charlie Brown's teacher, blah, 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 blah. And finally, Kevin, just to bug him a little more, you stay fired up, Patriot Ray. Well, thank you, Patriot Ray. Phone number's here. And by the way, Randy, the biker, the construction worker, the builder, says, Liberal Steve, time for you to just shut up and pay up. So, to be continued. The local media having some fun, I guess, with some comments made by Ammon Bundy, very popular young man, on Facebook. We have been supporters of Ammon and his family, the listeners here on KIDO Talk Radio for years. It's nice that he's getting some time in Emmett, Idaho. I thought the profile in the Statesman, if you saw it, was very fair and honest. And now he's making headlines, at least locally, by having some issues with the president and the immigration policy. We're going to play a little of it, and we'll get your thoughts in a moment, whether you agree with Ammon or you agree with President Trump. Let's take a listen.
Fear of this, from anywhere from, a domestic, or not a domestic, but a terrorist coming in to, and doing some harm, doing something to that effect. Look at this phone call here. To, economically they're going to take our food, they're going to get on welfare, and they're going to, destroy our country with welfare, they're going to bring in a disease. It's all fear-based, and it's frankly based upon selfishness. That, I'm going to lose something, by them coming in. And I think that's incorrect. I mean, I think that the facts are incorrect on that, of what would really happen. But also, to base your arguments or your motives or your actions based upon fear is a very a dangerous thing to do. Fear is the opposite of faith. Faith is the opposite of fear.
There you have it from Ammon Bundy. Mr. Bundy, obviously an American patriot, a business owner, a family man, a man of faith, giving his opinion on the crisis at the border. President Trump, really, besides Dan Stein and Fair and William Guillen and others that we've had on this program, telling it like it is. And again, Mr. Bundy, I was going to say Mr. Ammon, but Ammon, really an example of the compassion in America. The compassion in America to help others. We see that every day with volunteerism in the Treasure Valley, whether it's St. Vincent de Paul, whether it's the Boise Rescue Mission, the Meridian Canine Rescue, the Canyon County Animal Shelter, the West Valley Humane Society, that's what they call it, the Humane Society, the Good Samaritan Home. Maybe one day we could just do a show where we just list the great charitable organizations, Camp Rainbow Gold, right? And Mr. Bundy is correct. But on the other hand, we have situations that have been ignored by the mainstream media. On Fox and Friends the other day, they interviewed a man who lost his daughter because the guy had been deported again and again and again, and then he did some horrific things. You've got Bill O'Reilly with Kate's Law. You take a look at, we are so compassionate and sometimes so focused on ourselves, and I am a chief offender in this, that we don't realize what is happening to this great nation, changing culturally, changing morally, changing economically. What was it? Earlier this week, we had somebody on talking about the debt. And this is where Dave Petzo and I disagree. The debt has to be taken care of. The deficit has to be taken care of. The government cannot live on different rules than the rest of us, right? Wouldn't it be great if we could forgive all student loan debt? Again, one of the papers did a story over the weekend. I will die before my student loan debt is paid off. And wouldn't it be nice in our own lives, and businesses that do this are great. One of them, I will tell you, Diamond Heating and Cooling. They did some work for me, and they lived up and exceeded my expectations. But when it comes to marketing and sales, we have people and we have businesses that exceed expectations. We have government services that exceed expectations. How many times do we say, hey, get rid of the student loan debt, hey, get rid of this, and it's just more indebtedness? You know, I suppose that if we worship at the altar of FICA, that if we worship at the altar of money, we would do anything. But we have to live with ourselves. I don't know anybody that can compartmentalize, charging people exorbitant interest rates, whether it's student loans or anything else, and then be singing in the choir in church. Well, they did it to themselves. There's another issue. It's called predatory lending. Now, I don't know how we got from the illegals, Ammon Bundy's thoughts on this, to predatory lending, but it shows you the eclectic and ever-diverse nature of this program. And speaking of which, we'll go to Pro-Life. His ears must have been burning from last hour. Good morning. You're on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.
Yeah, it'll be nice if all the politicians that were running for office, last winter, come to the Idaho Chooses Life dinner. They were there, a big bunch of them, and it'll be nice if they all come back, after they've won. Maybe some of them even lose, but anyway, it'd be nice to see Dr. Alquist there and everybody, but I doubt it.
Pro-life?
But anyway.
Hey, pro-life, we've got a job for you.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to do it.
You heard that? Call Governor Otter and personally invite him from you, David Ripley, and me?
Yep, I'll do that. Anyway,
it would be nice to see Governor Otter at that event. I think he gets up there and he does these ribbon cutting and everything. I don't know what's going on with your phone there, but maybe it's the NSA coming to get you.
No, it's my phone cord's a bad code.
Well, just don't move.
All right. I'll stay still.
Stay still, pro-life. Stay still. But I think sometimes people don't appreciate him and his work in the pro-life community, and he could come in, say a few words, get a big round of applause. Maybe he eats spaghetti, maybe he doesn't, and out. But just to know that we all appreciate his work in the pro-life community.
Well, I'll do my part. I want to say something about Latin America. We made Red China our big trading partner a long, long time ago. Mr. Kissinger and Nixon did that, and that was a huge mistake. We should have.
There you go, moving again.
Yeah, well, anyway, we should have gone to Latin America and taken care of those people, had all our manufacturing down there, benefited our own hemisphere, and we didn't do that. So now we have a messed up hemisphere, and boy, is Venezuela ever messed up. A communist country, and Cuba, we never did take care of our own hemisphere, and so we're dealing with problems that we created way, way, way back, and it's the Republicans as much as the Democrats. Nixon was a Republican; he was a no-good president. But anyway,
well, what do you make of Ammon Bundy's comments? You know Ammon; you've been friends with him. You've had him call into the program. Heck, you know?
I've not talked to him about that, but I'm a little bit sympathetic because people are people, but I think that the border should be totally controlled, and we need people to do some kind of menial labor in this country, but I think our own people would do it. If we didn't have all kinds of socialist programs, people would have to go out and work, and so as a farmer, I'm saying that the dairy farmers, they could find people to take care of their dairies, and they wouldn't have to have the illegals. But they don't believe that. They think that they have to have illegal aliens. And
fair enough.
All right.
Fair enough, pro-life. Got to run. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And I'm Kevin Miller. So blessed to be a part of your morning. Fox News is next on your official station. That means there is no other. Fox News Radio in the Treasure Valley. Starting your day on the right side, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.